Hey all, it's Paul from Drums and Rums with the Backbeats Meets the Spirit. This episode is sponsored by Club Tiki. Visit them at clubtikico.com to order rum-based cocktails in a can. Use promo code Drums and Rums to receive a discount and free shipping when you order 2 4-packs or more. They can the tropics so you don't have to.
Want to learn more about rum or expand your rum knowledge? Then become a rumlier. The Royal Rum Society has rumlier certification programs for all levels, from enthusiasts who wants to learn more about rum all the way to master rumlier certification, the highest degree of rum knowledge, discernment, and elucidation. Visit rumlier.com. That's RUMMELIER.com. Use promo code DRUMS2022 and receive 15% discount off your enrollment. Hey all, it's Paul from Drums and Rums with the Backbeats Meets Spirits. It looks like I'm hiding behind some stuff here up in the bar, but this is percussion equipment for those of you who don't know. Those of you who are not drummers, and we're going to talk a little bit about these djembe and our cajon here and all other types of drums and percussion with our guest here. Let me welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, Evan Kline?
I'm doing great, Paul. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing great here for, like I said, today is we were talking earlier about evergreen content, and you're not supposed to talk about dates and times and years and so forth, but unfortunately we're going to have to kind of say, we're going to blow that one out of the water, because we have a drummer on the podcast, and today is, if you're listening as it drops, which is National Drummer Day, November 15th? Have I got my days wrong?
Yeah, you're right. 15th.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no. Here, I'm trying to think about
I'm with you. Don't worry.
I'm in the present, but we're thinking about the future, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier before the podcast. There is, I know you were pretty busy this weekend. You know, you do a lot of gigging here in South Florida. You perform with different artists, different styles of music. And you've virtually pretty much have lived in South Florida for most of your life, from what I understand, and so you've seen a lot of the change in music scenes, welcome to the podcast, Evan. So
thank you. Thanks for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So so let's just get right into it, right? So how did you? I believe you grew up with music in your house, right?
Oh, absolutely. My dad was a clarinet, sax, and flute player. He was in the Army band, and my grandfather on the other side, he was a singer, and music was always a huge part of my life. Very cool. So, and did you start out playing the drums? No, I actually started out as a clarinet player, if you can believe it. I wanted to play drums, but my parents would let us. So my brother and I both had to play clarinet first. And then when we moved down to South Florida, my parents finally let me switch when we moved here to drums in 7th grade. And that's when it all started.
Yeah, drums are really tough. I don't know. Learning clarinet can be also very difficult in a household, like, as in an element, as you're growing up as a kid. Kids that play trumpet, again, everyone sounds bad starting out, right? So I guess drums, and you're starting out playing drums. So like I said, everyone starts off terrible, right? And you get better, hopefully. But with drums, you're not only terrible starting out, but you're also loud about it too, right?
Yeah. I mean, drummers like to hit things,
Yeah, right. Yeah, I am the same boat. Was growing up, was the folks weren't all pleased about drums in the house. Like, why don't you play something else something that's not super loud and yeah.
Right.
So was that started out playing clarinet in elementary school, and how did that progression go through?
So basically, third grade through 6th grade, because in New York 6th grade was still elementary school. Clarinet. Moved here in 7th grade and got to switch right away to drums. And that's when it all started.
Okay.
So started in school band.
So it wasn't until actually you moved. Okay, so until you moved to Florida.
Yeah.
Did I miss that? Okay. So.
Yep. You got it.
Okay. So was there any? So what was that switching from clarinet to drums, right? Or you wanted to play drums before clarinet. So what was What was that spark? Why drums?
I think there's just something primal about drums. I mean, I always wanted to play drums. I mean, I had a huge rock influence and jazz influence, and just the drummers were always just, so badass,
Right.
and just, I think just everything about drumming. Like, I'd watch, MTV when they used to play actual videos, and I'd watch all the metal guys and the rock guys, and I'd be like, I want to do that.
Yeah, I think
So
we're roughly about the same age. So we've had probably a lot of the very similar growing up in the music scene and watching MTV. Yeah, like you said, Headbangers Ball.
right.
Yeah. So the so as you continue through, with the education and taking the drums, and you went on to high school, and you were I guess in the marching band as well too, right?
Yep.
Okay. And the after that, you graduated and come out and went continue your music education, and further than high school, to go through. So what was some of those things that kind of, yeah, obviously, when somebody wants to continue, it wasn't one of those. I hear some people tell me that they wanted to pursue music as a career, but their parents said, "Well, I'm not going to pay. You're going to go to school," and then at least they say, "Well, okay, I'm going to get at least an education in music, and then
Right.
be a rock star or whatever too, right?"
Right, exactly. Well, besides wanting to be a rock star taking over the world, besides that, so it's like, all right, well, I'm going to go to college. So, and my parents were totally supportive. I was actually going to do music therapy, but I ended up doing music education. And 'cause I like teaching, and I just ended up, sticking with the education aspect
Mm.
of it, because the only difference between the music education and music performance were the only two possibilities at my first college, were the technique classes, and the technique classes where we had to learn all the instruments. I'm like, well, I kind of think like a performance degree is, no offense to any performance majors, of course, but it's almost like, okay, well, the Rolling Stones need a drummer. It's like, here's my doctorate in drum set performance, and makes me like, great, man, can you play drums?
Right.
So I was like, all right, you know what, I'll do the education. I'll learn all the instruments. Cool, why not? And then I just, stuck with it. And after 1,000 credits later, it's like, I switched to university, transferred down to University of Miami. It's like, well, I'm not going to change my major now. So I
Right.
just finished with music education, and I've been teaching for years anyways. And I love teaching. So
Okay.
it just worked.
Yeah. Yeah. So after there's because I said that's always the interesting thing, Evan, and I talk with other drummers that do pursue that path of continuing education into higher uh, learning, I guess if that's the term, is they obviously looking to have a longer term. Uh, I hate to call it like a backup plan, but I mean, I guess it's like kind of like football or athletes who excel in high school, excel in college, and then they leave before they get their degree. And of course, nobody ever wants to think they're going to bust a knee playing football and shorten their career. But you got to have something to fall back on, and I think it's a great way for those that I know kids shouldn't be probably listening to this podcast because it is technically an alcohol reference show, but if you're going to pursue, if you want really music to be your lifelong career and your passion involvement, at least go get a degree. I mean, look, it's not the end all be all. Just like people that never been trained or never took a day of class and to play drums, and there's some people that can do it without ever had a lesson, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Right. So so you went to school there in college, and then you said you went to UM. Now there was a kind of I tell you there's a part of like I said I was reading earlier. I told you it was a little bit of that article from Voyage Miami. They have it right.
Miami.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'll tell you it wasn't a very easy path, I guess, for you to kind of to get to continue on. Yeah, you talk a little bit about that because I think the important thing is what I took away from that was there was a lot of challenges, but you didn't give up.
Exactly. Yeah, there was definitely a lot of challenges, and I don't even know where to begin with that. But from being told by adult music professor figures, this or that, you're never going to make it in life and blah, 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 because some of us butted heads and, and not allowing me to do this or telling me I can't do that. Well, I ended up doing all of that and I persevered and I made it through. Really, really long story short. But the moral of the story is it's like it almost doesn't matter when it happens as long as it happens, and you need to make it happen. You got to take responsibility for yourself because nobody else is going to do it for you. Nobody else can put you through those things. You have to do it yourself.
Right.
And definitely been through hell and back.
No, that's look, again, the perseverance, right? You didn't give up because there was a period, and it's all up to you if you want to go discuss a little further, but that part about not there was a 15-year gap or break in between, right?
Yep. Yeah. I don't know how in depth you want me to get on it, but yeah, there was 15 years when I had almost 40 credits more than I needed for my degree. Between my credits at my first college and then transferring to University of Miami, in the semester before my internship, they lost my financial aid twice. I'm 21 at the time, and it's like, what 21-year-old thinks to mail in, financial aid paperwork, return receivable? Who thinks of that? So they let me physically put deliver by hand. I put it in a woman's hands in the financial aid office at the University of Miami. They lost it. So I technically wasn't allowed to finish my last semester. So even though I had over 40 credits more than I needed, I just had to do my internship and that was it. So I had ended up, I got to finish that semester, but I didn't get to do my internship. And then 15 years later, I got in sideways. Then I already have a son at this point, and it was rough. It was really rough because I lost out all those years of financial benefits, medical benefits, everything. I lost out on everything, but I was able to get in, and I ended up getting a teaching job at a high school, but it was part-time, and I wasn't at full-time salary or anything like that, no benefits, but I loved what I was doing and the people I was with. But I got in sideways through a program at UM for people like me that were older with kids and jobs and outstanding credits, and I was able to do it online. And because I didn't need any credits, I had everything that I needed. They just made me jump through hoops. While I jumped through 3 years of hoops, they lost my financial aid again. I'm sorry. No, I didn't lose my financial aid again. Sorry. I had too many credits. A new law was passed. I had 182 attempted credits, 182, and I still didn't have my bachelor's degree. It's like, are you kidding me? So it came down to one vote whether I was going to lose everything, 1,000 years, all that, and they let me back in. I finished and I graduated in 2018.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I already was teaching for high school for 15 years and running the drum store and head of education, but crazy. But I did it.
And U of M is a private school, so I know it doesn't have some of those same things that the public schools here in Florida. I get that there's some financial, and maybe they've received some, that was it a law, a Florida law? Because I know when like I said, I went back to school, to FAU, and when I was older, and very similar, right? If you had so many credits, well, what do you do with people that may have been muddling around for? And I know that wasn't your case, but
right.
You got all these credits, and then you're trying to end it up. It's I don't know. I get why it's very unfortunate why the education system for people that leave school, there's got to be a solution, right? Rather than burning debt, and you got nothing to show for it. But yeah, I know you at least had that, but that sucks because, like you said, so you only could get a part-time job teaching was because you weren't a 4-year degree teacher?
Yep. No, that's it. It's exactly it. Because I technically didn't have the degree. Now, they knew and respected that they knew my whole situation, but, technically you have to have the piece of paper. I mean, it's a school. So I had to have the piece of paper. And yeah, and to answer your question from before, I don't remember, because it was now a few years ago, but I don't remember if it was a Florida law or a federal law about the credits. But I think it might just be a Florida law. because it was the whole idea of the thing was to keep students from, like you said, muddling around. So, go in, take their classes, and get out,
Right.
instead of taking 1,000 years of classes.
They didn't want any Van Wilders running around the University of Miami.
Right. That's exactly what they were trying to avoid.
So let's talk a little bit of U of M, because I have a friend who had also I never really got into details with it, but I was curious because he also went to school in music school at U of M, I think for trumpet, and I think that was his specialty or whatever you call it. But yeah, I mean, talk a little bit about the school, because I don't know if a lot of people realize, other than most people probably hear of University of Miami and they think hurricanes, football, and that's about it, right? Maybe some law,
Right.
maybe some medical stuff, but there's actually a pretty, well recognized music part of the university.
Oh, absolutely. No, the School of Music at the University of Miami is definitely not only national, but internationally well known. And of course, I'm biased, but I'm not just being biased because I went there. But no, it's some of the top musicians on the planet have come out of UM. The professors there are absolutely top notch, very competitive, yet very friendly at the same time. Like everybody is super awesome there. But Jaco Pastorius went there. Actually, he went to audition there as a student. They ended up hiring him as a professor, which is amazing.
That's crazy.
I mean, enough said. Jaco was there. I don't even need to say anything else. But yeah, the discography of famous drummers, musicians all around that were students there, and some even went back and taught there, I wouldn't even know where to start the list. The School of Music is phenomenal. Like, I'm very honored to have been a part of it, for sure.
And this segment is brought to you by the University of Miami. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, the U. Yeah, I know. Everybody, I see you running around there. Who the U? And they did actually pretty good. They did actually did pretty good this past week, and they beat Georgia Tech pretty handily, I saw.
Yes. Yep. I think our FSU and Gator drum fans right now are not happy with us. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
They're good schools too. Really, they're good schools too. But
yeah.
Sorry.
So for those that are listening, yeah, I know that they don't. I know we have some international listeners and all over, and football. The schools here in Florida is a big rivalry between depending on where you are in the state, whether you're a Gator, you're a Knoll, Seminole, FSU, a Hurricane down in Miami, and of course there's a lot of other schools in between and so forth. Don't want to Of course, I'm an Owl, so we did beat FIU this weekend, pretty good in the Shula Bowl. But yeah, there's a lot. Like I said, I think that those are probably listening that probably are in the music savvy, right? Are aware of it. But I think a lot of folks that probably may listen that just never would have thought that it was actually a well-renowned music school. And again, it's a private school.
Yeah.
U of M is not. Let's just say it's not a cheap school either.
No, it is not. It is definitely not.
Right.
Definitely not a cheap school.
So after you came out there, then you said you did a little bit of teaching, and so it was like kind of like high school, middle school, or I guess when the part-time job part.
It was a high school teaching job. While also while teaching at I'd been teaching at Resurrection Drums for since '95. So, and at the drum store teaching from basically till about 4 or 5 years old up to about 80. I had a student that was 87. So the age range was, ginormous, from toddler to elderly. But my teaching job was mostly was high school.
So speaking of Resurrection, right? So those that aren't familiar, is Resurrection Drums is been around forever, right? Mm-hmm. Here in I always forget what building it's as I'm passing down the highway in 95 is. I know just before you get to it, of course, I just drove past it this weekend down to Miami for the Rum Festival. So this is why I'm going to make the reference because it's fresh in my memory. It's just building south of the Pleasure Emporium or what.
That's it. And we used to be next door to Scarlett's. So, hey.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So I'm sure you got stories. Yeah. Maybe we'll save that for the Patreon chat right afterwards. Yeah. Then we could share the stories.
That'll be another podcast.
there you go. So yeah, the speaking of So Resurrection, I guess, and talk a little bit about that, because I think, again, a lot of folks that know this and may or may not, but I know it's been there at least forever, as long as I know it. But when you mentioned you started teaching there in '95, that's got to put you probably in your early 20s there teaching, right?
18. I
Wow.
was 18 when I started there. Yeah, it's amazing because I'm only 22 now.
That was
Yeah.
COVID years don't count, remember?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started working there in '95, and shortly after I started working there, I was also allowed to teach. And I was doing sales and service and repairs, and started to do some teaching, and then more fact, we had numerous stores. We had a small satellite one in Coral Springs. Of course, the main one was Hallandale at the time, and then one off of Bird Road in South Miami. And over the years, I worked all the stores, and even ended up running them. And then over time, the store, Coral Springs store, had 2 different spots. And it's a whole big long story, but ended up just commingling into one big main location, and moved from Hallandale to Hollywood. And the Coral Springs store closed a long time ago, and we closed the Miami store. Just the areas had changed, and so we just moved one big location, kept it right off 95. So we may not be close, but we're super easy. The store was super easy to get to because it was right off I-95.
Yep. Yeah, you could definitely see it as you look forward. Is just on going south. It's on the west side of 95, just right there. You see the store, like I said. And yeah, I stopped in there a couple of years ago. And picked up a new pair of hi-hats, and I finally, it was one of those, I finally remembered to. Yeah, I think that time I went was sought out to go to the store, as opposed to you're like, oh, I'm passing by, and I know, like, some of the other big box stores that we won't name, you pass by and you catch, it's obviously a huge, some of those huge stores. But yeah, it was, I popped in there and was like, this is the drummer store. And it's great to see drum stores, because some of the big box stores that sell music stuff doesn't have some of these things that as a drummer, it's kind of very similar, right? This is where people always ask me, Evan, is like, they don't get this whole drums and rums thing, right? And to me, I see a lot of very similar paths in strings, where the drummers, have a very particular thing that are very specific, whereas the rummers, the rum enthusiasts, have very specific things about it, right? So here's the analogy. So if you're really into rum, you're probably not going to the big box liquor store, right?
Right.
If you're a drummer, you're really hoping you're going to find a drum shop.
Definitely. Perfect analogy.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, just to kind of, I know a lot of times people have got some of their listeners that are, probably more rum guests or rum centric versus, but hopefully, I always try to, I tell everybody that, especially on the rum side, is I'm in the shallow end here. We can get totally nerdy and geek and technical, and I'm sure there's some drummers that may listen like, you didn't get into this. How much torque do you apply on the drum heads, and how much tuning, and I was like, we could go there, but it's kind of like, hey, we're having a conversation, like, as I always tell, we're sitting at the airport bar. You mentioned drums, and I'm like, the radar goes off, and and then we go off from there. So yeah, so Resurrection Drums, Hollywood location. Yeah, I guess I've lived in Florida since '91, but mostly up in Central Florida. Moved before moving to West Palm in '99. So, so I may not have known about the other locations. It always seemed like I've always known of the one in Hollywood, though.
Yeah, that was the main location.
Okay.
And it's funny because if you were, if you knew like the South Miami store, like the one that was off Bird Road, you wouldn't believe how many clients down there had no idea there were other resurrections. In fact, they didn't even know that wasn't even the main location. That was just a satellite store.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness, it was so funny. And everybody thought one of the managers there, that was the manager at the time, they thought he was the owner. different world.
It's kind of like here, we've got a square grouper, and then there's a square grouper in Fort Pierce, and then somebody went to me one time, like, "Oh yeah, Jupiter has a square grouper." I'm like, "Dude, the one in Jupiter is the original square grouper. That's where they filmed the video for 5 o'clock somewhere." And they're like, "Oh, I didn't." I'm like, Psh, So, but anyway, yeah, they had no clue, and it's just two counties.
No idea.
Yeah. So definitely. So yeah, your time there at Resurrection. So what was some of the things other than teaching, and you were running the stores, and as you mentioned, and you did clinics there too at one point, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, I didn't do clinics, but the store hosted. We would have, oh my goodness, we'd have clinic weekend. We'd have weekends. The club next door before it was Scarlett's was actually a hip hop club, and then it was another nightclub before that. But during the day there was nothing going on, so we would use that space. We'd have, oh my gosh, we'd have Akira Jimbo. We'd have followed by, oh my goodness, Cindy Blackman with El Negro, and we'd have 4, 5, or 6 major players, and we'd have a festival weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes it was amazing. We'd have, I can't even tell you how many clinics we would do a year. We would do a lot. Sometimes we would do it in the store. Sometimes we would do them at a school. Sometimes we do them at a Hollywood Performing Arts Center. Oh yeah, clinics were huge, because back then you couldn't turn on your phone and see whoever you wanted. You had to either, first of all, Resurrection Drums being the drums only drum store owned and operated by professional drummers. So the only way to see your drummer was you had to, hope that they made an educational videotape. I said videotape, or you buy the next album that they're on, or hope that they come into town, with touring. That was the only way to really see your favorite drummers, So clinics were, oh my gosh, you got to meet and see these people in person, not on a stage in an arena with 40,000 people. And, before, you can turn on your phone and see anybody you want while you're in the bathroom, So it's such a different era. The drummers today, they have no idea.
No, it's funny. It's I don't know. It's is a sense that the reminiscent of us talking about back when I was a kid kind of approach, but you're right, because even think back even before the VHS tape, the instructional videos, or even before the DVDs, you had at least the Modern Drummer magazines or Drum magazine. So at least there was or like the clinics, and that was part of a drummer's routine. And but it was, I don't and maybe that's kind of did some of the reasons why the store kind of compressed a little bit was there was the internet now is coming out. Some of those other box stores are starting to kind of move in. I think you mentioned in one of you somewhere about the clinics, that kind of started really drying up, and even before COVID. And like you said, because now I can just go watch somebody on YouTube or go to, do you think the expansion, and I don't want to come off kind of, slighting anybody who does this, but the expansion of obviously high-speed internet, good home equipment, cameras, audio, that kind of birth of the online education. I said I don't want to name anyone in particular, but there's a whole big, look we had Jared on, Jared Falk was on, and with Drumeo, right, and that kind of like same thing. They started off as a video thing, and then they just kind of blew up, and they've got a really great business, and they offer a lot to their subscribers, but it took away, now you can watch on YouTube or their subscription somebody doing a lesson, whereas
I think like many things, it's a double-edged sword. Now it's like, before you had to sit in a room with some person and like take lessons and go every week and go home and practice and go, if you wanted to learn anything, not drums, pick an instrument or pick any trade for that matter, you had to find a master of that, or and study with them, an apprenticeship and take lessons. And now it's like You can learn to do anything, from playing drums to cooking to building a shelf or, whatever online. But, um, and I'll dabble at some things I'm trying to find, and I'll check it out online too, because obviously it's super convenient to have something on your phone, or if you don't have a lot of time, but you need to check out something really quick, like how do I do that, or what is that supposed to sound like? Like, okay, cool. But the value of sitting in a room with a professional of anything, of any trade, doesn't have to just be drums, but really just expand it to anything, is, it's invaluable to be able to sit in a room with a human being that's a master at something, and learn whatever skill you're trying to learn. Not to mention the there is a difference when you're paying somebody to learn, what they do, that they do so well that you're willing to pay them for their time to teach you how to do what they do. It definitely ingrains a different value in respect. Excuse me. It provides a different kind of like energy and respect for what you're learning, and really makes you want to put more into what you're doing.
Right.
It's
a different
so,
experience in the connection of the physical or the in-person aspect of it. And yeah, I agree, because I don't know. I always wonder sometimes, does it come across, watching somebody on a video, and especially anyone who's trying to learn drum covers, right? I think that's at least a big, positive thing is drum covers. You're trying to watch, okay, how does that, okay. And of course now so many drummers that are on YouTube, they've got like multi-camera to watch the feet or change up or whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot of times like, how the heck did, but that's one of those things, as you said, kids today don't understand how hard it was. Like, hey, how did so-and-so, how does Neil Peart do that? Well, of course, we all still don't know how near, because,
right. Absolutely.
So he, but that's that part, is being in person, actually to see it, that's like, and again too, that's again, that I think, in my opinion, the similarities and path of, this whole craziness of the oddities of how does drums and rums fit together is, drinking or enjoying a rum cocktail is a social thing, right? Nobody wants to be sitting, again, just like right. Do we all love to sit and by ourselves in this shed, but solo? It's not fun, right? It's fun when you got others with you, right?
Right.
Right.
We're drummers, we're social animals.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We're social creatures.
So yeah, let's that's, I think, maybe a good segue there, because so you not only are just a drummer, but you're a percussionist, multi percussionist, and I know some of the stuff that some of the videos I've watched, obviously in the intro that we were watching, and do you participate in any of the local drum circles?
I actually used to run two of them with the Resurrection Drums in the city of Hollywood. They used to sponsor. They used to do the art walk in downtown Hollywood, which they still do. Excuse me. Every second Saturday of the month, and then we would do a full moon drum circle, which would always be within a calendar day or two of the actual full moon. And we did both the full moon drum circle for 12 years,
oh, wow.
and the art walk for 8 or 9. The art walk, unfortunately, drum circle just ended early this year because we had an artist that used to paint with his feet to our drumming. He was amazing, internationally award-winning artist, Heineken mural competition winner. Daniel Pontet passed away earlier this year. Our dear friend. So very sorry. So that kind of ended the art walk drum circle, and then up until last month, we had the full moon drum circle, which also ended because of a new state law that, not going to get into politics or anything, not doing that. But basically saying that the city CRAs, community redevelopment associations, can no longer use money for entertainment. So the city of Hollywood is one of the biggest cities that I know of in the country that sponsors entertainment. So that just ended the drum circle after like 12 years of us doing that.
But they still do. And again, I don't mean to drag you into it.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. So I know there's a couple other drummers that, again, has been on this podcast, South Florida drummers, and they perform. And I'll mention it, again, it's not this person, but I saw it. So I think her, Harley Mitchell, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think the band that she's in, I know she's in a couple, but I thought they just played. I saw it over the weekend, some little stage or venue in Hollywood. So, I mean, is it?
Oh,
it's got to be sponsored.
Okay, so was that the Margaritaville stage?
Yes.
That's the band shell. I actually just played there Thursday night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that because my daughter actually came with me to my show that I was playing with on Thursday night, and she said the same thing to me. And I said, Margaritaville pays for that, not the city of Hollywood. It used to be the city, but when Margaritaville came in, they took over the band shell. So yeah.
So wait a minute. We have an opportunity here then. So if they can do it for the band shell, and I mean, has everyone ever thought to approach them? Because I want to come back to the drum circle thing here in a second. Is to approach them again, percussion. Again, the music. Rum, right? Maybe I'll go down there and talk to them, right? Say.
Yes.
Supply, sponsor the drum circle, enjoy something. Again, I guess technically you can't drink on the beach, but right. I'm sure somebody can, figure out the permits for that, right? And again, you have a good time, whatever the case may be. And there we go. We're on it. We got to work on this, Evan. All right, there you go.
Yeah, we do. We got a new mission ahead of us.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So let me come back to that drum circle. So that was a lot of times where, I always miss it. Again, a lot of stuff going on. I always want to go check it out, but I'm also, it's one of those things that, if I show up, I don't know, I'm new, I don't know anybody. And, I know it's a very opening community, so there's, no, and I shouldn't be worried, but again, going for the first time and actually giving it a try, but yeah.
I mean, you're about being shy about going to a drum circle?
Yeah. I think there's just, again, going in, it's like I don't know, going somewhere and not knowing anybody kind of thing,
You know what? Absolutely. Well, I definitely get that, and I would say, drummers, we like I said before, we are different animals, but in a good way, of course. And I would say, you showing up to participate in a drum circle, I mean, that's like the friendliest thing in the world. So I like you said, it's a little nerve-wracking to show up anywhere when you don't know anybody, but it's to a drum circle, so it's like the more the merrier for sure. So I would say just go bring your drum and just see what's going on and find a place to jump in, and I think everybody would find you very welcoming. I've never been to a drum circle, outside of the drum circles. I've been to many, and they're always super inviting and welcoming. Sometimes they're even so big. I mean, if 100 people left, you wouldn't know. There's so many people going on. But I always say to anybody, whether you're a kid or you're an adult, whatever, and community drumming, it's like drummers. It's all about community and just making music. So just go and just start having fun, because that's what it's about.
Yeah, and like you talked a little bit about earlier about the music, the education that you were looking to pursue was about music and drumming with health or music therapy. And we had on I had Jim Donovan from Rusted Root, now it's Sun King Warriors now, and he's got a whole thing he has as well too about the importance of the body and connecting with things, and so it's I don't think and I love to do an episode to talk to whoever about a little bit more about music therapy, especially with percussion, because I think it's an important thing. And I think there's times that, right now there's been a little bit stressful, as we've had a few hurricanes in the last couple months, and it's been a little bit crazy here in Florida. But I know personally, as like I haven't been, getting a chance to, play on a play the drums as much. I should be just like I said. I just had the cajon here or something, just like something, because there's that amount of that stress release. Like I said, that
Yes.
drum circle. You're there together with people, and you're doing something very primal and physical, and
Yeah.
the energy, and and
Yeah.
some people may not buy it and believe it, but it's a real thing.
Absolutely. No, it's so natural. First of all, like Jeff, the owner of Resurrection Drums, would say to people at our drum circles all the time, for starters, it gets you off your phone, and now you're focused on something completely different. Something like you said is, very natural, very primal. It encompasses breathing and relaxing. Even if you're going nuts, it's still making you, breathe, and it's just completely changing your focus. So whatever you got going on at work or at home, or whatever's going on in the world, there's just you and that drum, and having fun. And I mean, really, like, it could be taken onto any instrument, really, to expand that idea to any instrument. But we're just talking about drums right now. So yeah, there's something just very therapeutic on countless levels about playing a drum. And again, it gets you off electronics. It totally changes your focus, your breathing, centers you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very healing.
So that's it. So there you go, folks. If you don't already have drums, go buy some. And again, it's anyone can do it, right? And again, if you want to seriously, again, it's look. I've had friends over my house, and I used to have the drum kit right in our middle of our living room, and you walk in, there it is, and there's all those odds and ends and percussions and stuff, and whether it's a couple of djembes and the cajones and everyone, like, because it's very easy and inviting, I think, right? Everybody can do it, and I just had on just recently, geez, I think it's a few months ago now, was Michael Fronte's drummer, Manis Itne. And he does a lot of percussion. He does some clinics too, and he just happened, they came through here on a tour a couple months ago, and just to get a chance to talk to him about some of the stuff he does. And it's the same thing. He goes to some of the clinics and drum circles, and so yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So what are some of the places you perform regularly here?
I'm actually all over, from Lorelei and Isla Morada and the Keys, through some of the resorts up in PGA Boulevard, Palm Beach Gardens, so literally anywhere and everywhere. And sometimes I'll be in one or two spots for years, and then everything's kind of in waves. I could be in downtown Hollywood. I was at Mickey Burns once a month for 6 or 7 years pre-pandemic. I was at Boca Resort every week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week with 2 or 3 different groups. Really, all over the place. I played a wedding last night at a Ritz-Carlton in Fort Lauderdale Beach. I did a lagniappe in downtown Midtown Miami Saturday night. I subbed a church gig Sunday morning. That Hollywood Bandshell Margaritaville on Thursday night. All different groups. So all over.
So definitely doesn't sound like a few places that you have to deal with. The dive bars, right? It's.
Oh, I do that too. Oh, I definitely do that too. I definitely do that too. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with a good dive bar.
Yeah, some of the best crowds, right?
Yeah. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of dive bars. I like it all,
So because of your education that you pursued in the studies, was because you're performing with other groups, and because you learned, how to read music, how to chart, or so you can kind of sub in and drop in, or you do a lot of. I was watching some of the video. Again, you're playing with a couple different performers and artists that you kind of are interchangeable, and you're flex. And again, that I think, again, going back to what was said earlier, was if you have that foundation, the education, the knowledge to bring it on, don't be a one trick. If you have a certain style, I think that's another thing too, right? If you're really truly, and if you're listening to this at a young age, and you really truly want to pursue a career in music or drums, you've got to shed what type of music you really like, and to be very open to other types of music if you want to be a full-time musician making a career and so forth, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it opens up,
Versatility is it.
right? It opens a lot more doors for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't ever want to be, asked, hey, Evan, can you do this? It's like, oh, no, I'm only that. It's like, that's like one of my worst fears. Like, I don't want to, oh, hey, do you play this? No, I only play that. It's like, no, I want to be like, sure. Yeah. I may not be great at this or great at that, but I could do the gig. I could, versatility is definitely, where it's at. Like, on a side note, like I remember in 7th grade when I was starting to play drums, and all the older cats, the band director was yelling at the kids to go uncover the timpani, and none of them would go do it because I guess they thought it wasn't cool or something. And I didn't know anything. I was looking around like, I'll do that. That looks cool. Like, and they were looking at me like, to me, it's like, I want to learn. I don't know what those are. I want to learn those. I want to learn that. I want to learn everything. I want to learn it all.
Right.
So I think versatility is definitely helpful. And as far as reading music, it's so helpful because, I sit in with so many different bands, and sometimes they'll send me something or 40 or 50 or 60 tunes. And if, I may obviously know a bunch of them, and there's a bunch I may not know, or I'll sub a church gig. And I don't know any of that. Now I've been, subbing churches for a long time, so I'm more familiar with a lot of that music. But I'll print out the chart. Like they'll send me like links to the PDFs for the lyrics, or sometimes actual, piano music or something. And I can actually write a one measure little groove for myself. I chart out. So I now have a binder like that thick of my church music. It got so thick, I had to get another one, and it's like that. And it's just, so I have 2 binders of church music. And like when I get called to play them, it's like 5 or 6 tunes, and it's like, it's awesome because I'll go through and like, now I recognize, I remember that name. Like, I already wrote it out. I already charted it out. And I don't mean necessarily writing out the whole thing. I'll just write out like a little couple of, a measure here, a measure there, groove change, some notes for myself, and I'll go back to it. It's like, I already did the work.
Right.
So now I could just listen to listen to the tune again with my notes. And it's like, okay, cool. And now I can go to the gig, show up, because when you show up to a rehearsal, it's paid, and you're there to rehearse, not to practice. So it's like they're expecting me to, like, all right, let's go through the tunes and we'll work out some things, whatever, not learn this tune. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I can go there and be like, okay, I'm ready to rock. I am subbing. So my job is to jump in and be a substitute. It's like their regular person, was still there.
Right. Yeah.
So it's very helpful.
It goes back to the preparation, right? That's it.
You're right. It's all prep. It's all about the preparation for sure.
So, yeah. And it's not necessary, as you mentioned, I think, people get hung up on, there's a lot of talk about the Nashville numbering system, but at the end of the day, it's almost like, hey, whatever works for you, right?
Right. Absolutely. Exactly. Absolutely. Whatever works, whatever works,
right. So
whatever works, sometimes, there isn't a lot of time to go over something. So it's like, I need the quickest way. And so just writing out a quick little doodle helps.
Right. So, what's your current configuration setup there? Sounds like depending on the gig, obviously you're bringing a kit versus your hand drum setup, right?
Right. Okay. So, I have a bunch of different kits, now, and it's amazing. I went from, actually, could I turn my camera? I'll show you one of them real quick. Do you mind?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So that's my Ludwig rocker from 1989. It's double bass. The other, that's only part of the kit. So I used to have a big touring death metal band. I was touring all over the place, and I even have my 1969 Slingerland in yellow satin flame back there. I bought that off of UM when I was there.
Look at that color.
Like that. 3-piece. So it's crazy. So I went from the giant death metal, drum kit, and even back then when I was in high school touring my death metal band with the big Ludwig kit, I was also playing the Greater Miami Youth Symphony Orchestra. Go figure. and doing the marching band at Marjorie.
That is an extreme, okay?
Yes. Well, and also while playing in the marching band at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, first 4-year class. So anyway, so I've gone from all that to I literally try to bring as little as possible now. Not necessarily because I'm trying to be a minimalist, but most of my gigs now really just call for like as little as possible. So, and even space is typically an issue in a lot of gigs. So even my drum sizes. So I have a lot of different kits besides these here. So typically it's just I usually use a 4-piece kit. Sometimes even just a 3-piece. Sometimes I'll just use bass, snare, floor tom. Or I'll have the 10-inch tom up top, ride, crash, and I always invert a splash on top of it. Everyone's like, oh, what's that? I'm like, minimized an extra stand there. And then hi-hats. So, really pretty simple. Sometimes if it's a bigger, heavier gig, like if I'm playing outdoors at Mickey Burns with my old rock cover band, I'll bring out the full 20-inch bass drum, 8, 10, 12, 14 floor, big snare drum, ride, 2 crashes, an effect crash, splash, hi-hats. And at the end of the night, I'm always like, why did I do that? Because I got to tear it all down and put it back in the car and everything. But yeah, typically my typical setup is usually just bass, snare, maybe a high tom, floor tom, ride, crash with the inverted splash and hi-hats. Now for my percussion setup, typically, depending on what it is, like with most of the bands, usually they just want congas and bongos, so I'll use 2 congas, set of bongos, a hand crash, like a Sabian Picante hand crash, and a little tray with some tchotchkes, some shakers, vibra slap, like the wedding I did last night, all that, but timbales, right, with cowbells and blocks. So I have to have all of that stuff.
I was just in you probably know the places in Miami is La Trova.
Oh yeah,
it's right on 8th, or I don't know if it's Calle Ocho or it's 8th Street, or it's like one of the big bars, restaurants, and they've got live music in there. And again, I told somebody who was visiting, I said, if you want the experience, Miami, Cuba, all this, I said, go there. They've got a live band in there. I said, here it was like Sunday night, like 10 o'clock at night. And again, Miami's international city, so of course, it's almost like nobody's sleeping, right? And I'm like, right. The place was packed, and the band's going. And I said, so they asked them the next day after they went, and well, I'm mixing my stories up, but anyway,
as you're good,
yeah. But I asked them, they went Saturday night, so, but I was in there last night. That's why I'm mixing it up. But anyway, so the group that went in Saturday night, I said, hey, did you get that sound of the clave stuck in your head now? The
like, I can't sleep. I hear it in my head.
Yeah. It's not the cowbell. It's the clave, right? Yeah.
Right. Definitely.
So the hand drums in general is, they're, talk a little bit, Evan, about, there is a certain way to hit that hand drum, and there's a way not to hit the hand drum, right?
Definitely. Absolutely. For starters, no sticks, no mallets, bare hands, no rings, no jewelry or anything. Hand drum technique is very, very different than holding a stick, because, typically with a stick, you want to use like all wrist and fingers, and hand drum, depending on the sound you want to get, because there's, open sounds. I always tell people, you kind of want to think of like your hand as like a paddle, and the way you're going to strike the head, you want your hand to bounce off the drum head, except there's one technique when you're doing the slap on a conga. It's like the only technique in the world where it's like when you play a drum with sticks, you typically never leave the stick in the head. I mean, technique-wise, you're technically not supposed to. You might do that on your own without realizing it, but technically that's not the technique. But with a conga slap, it's like one of the only techniques in the world where you actually have to stop your hand from coming off. It's almost like I always say, like, imagine you're falling off the side of a cliff and you're reaching over to the side for dear life. And that's kind of like, it's almost like your hand is like whipping the side of the drum, and it's kind of like open on the inside. It's kind of hard to show you. And it gets that really high pop. Okay. It's hard to do. It takes time to get, and will hurt your hand trying to do it for a while. You can even like depress the head with one hand and then while doing the slap on there, and it kind of makes it a little bit higher pitched. Anybody that's heard any traditional salsa playing has heard the slap without even realizing it. But yeah, definitely hand drum technique is definitely different and very cool. I definitely love hand drums, African, djembe playing, conga drumming, love it.
And you teach all of that, right?
Yep, I do.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah, because I know. Look, as we say, in fairness, that it's not as a sought after, right? It's a style. I mean, again, there's here in especially South Florida, right? You definitely can get like the here and up here, South Florida, Palm Beach, Treasure Coast areas, like two fiddle guys, right? And it's like, they got like all the work.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sure they're tearing it up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, to expand into, a lot of that music here in South Florida, Miami, Florida, is that, and again, watching you, in some of the videos there in working on the hand drums, it's like, man, the sound, and then especially speeding up and then switching it up, and it was pretty impressive. So okay, so we're gonna start kind of winding down, but I've got so you grew up. You said you played a little bit in the metal band there. You said in the early '90s. So you were definitely in the scene here. It was kind of interesting. So I'm sure, because like I said, putting the timing here, and a fellow South Floridian who came through this area and became big was what stories you got about Marilyn Manson and the Spooky Kids?
Okay.
Oh, there you go. So yeah,
I actually have a really interesting story about Marilyn Manson. Okay, so my death metal band back in the day, I can give a shameless plug because we haven't been around in 20, 30 or a long time. Corrupted Minds. I actually used to open for Marilyn Manson.
No shit.
Yeah, back in the day, it was Marilyn Manson and the Spooky Kids back then. Guys, your audience will win a trivia contest somewhere with that knowledge. But yeah, I used to open up for them a bunch. Crazy.
And is it? So, yeah. So, any crazy stories? Was he as crazy then, or did he just kind of gradually keep going?
He was okay. I think the people that came to see him were crazier than he was back then. They're all walking around, of course, full gothed out, all carrying their black lunch boxes and everything. And yeah, he was definitely out there, but he was definitely out there, but he was cool with me,
Because I think, and I, like I said, I moved to Florida in early '90s and time frame and got in, well, yeah, because you described it seemed like early '90s, the death metal scene was booming, starting to really grow in Florida, right? In Tampa had Obituary, and there was all sorts. I think the Spooky Kids or Marilyn Manson was even, I think, opening up, and there was a lot with the band. You remember the Genitorturers?
Yeah, of course.
So
absolutely,
that's
Rape Tape and Boogalard, all those great bands that and I'm still friends with those drummers to this day. Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I was. I was young drummer. I was in high school then. So, to me, like getting to open up for Rape Tape and Boogalard and even, Marilyn Manson, I was like, oh my gosh, like it was like getting to, perform with your idols. You looked up to those guys,
Right. And was that a lot? Was that in was that like the Culture Room and what was a couple of the other places?
Oh, well, there was, there were places that don't exist anymore. There was Rosebuds. There was a place called Club Illusions. That's long gone. I bet most people don't remember that place, but that's where I played with, opened up for Marilyn a couple of times.
Okay.
Plus 5, Davy. There was a lot of great places. Oh my goodness. Of course, but South, Summers on the Beach. Oh my gosh, there's the other ones, Ambassador's Lounge. So many great places. Yeah, metal scene down here is definitely happening. No doubt about And there's a bunch of other really crazy places, and I can't think of the names off the top of my head, like Treetop, Treehouse. Gosh, I can't think. And there was a bunch of good places, yeah, for sure. A lot of great bands for sure. Washington Square in South Beach. That was a staple.
Churchill's.
Churchill's, yes. Definitely.
Not in the greatest areas, but definitely if you were into it, yeah.
Yep. Kill your chicken in the parking lot. Yep.
Yes, it was little Haiti. So it was I went there one time with a couple of guys, and it was one of those Metal Fest shows and local, and I couldn't remember the name of some of the bands. Again, I was getting introduced some of the resurgence of metal that was like the technical, early 2000s, mid 2000s time frame. Some of the stuff like Iced Earth and things like that. And it's like, okay, am I showing my age? I'm trying to learn more about it, and but anyway, so that's a whole.
Right there, right there with you.
So pretty cool. So Evan, as we get wrapping here, so we do our little segment here for rapid fire to kind of have some fun and kind of get you thinking about certain things, and so we call the segment in 4 beats or less.
Okay.
All right. So in 4 beats or less, number 1, who's on your Mount Rushmore of drummers?
Oh wow. Vinny Colaiuta, Terry Bozzio, Jeff Porcaro, and Gene Krupa.
Okay. All right. Yeah. There's a couple.
There's so many, but yeah, that'll work.
I know. I know. Somebody asked me the other question the other day that I'm like, yeah, there's so many for different reasons, right? And somebody said,
right, absolutely. That was a really good question. Like, ooh, that was tough.
Yeah, and
for time's sake, I can answer quick.
Well, I know. It was, when we started off that segment, it was a 4 beats were like, yeah, but you never said what the tempo was, so it could be a really long. I said, touche. Yes. So yeah, I always get the question about like everyone who's not a drummer and I'm sure you get it all the time is like, what's the deal with Ringo, right? It was Ringo good or what? I'm like, that's tough to say. It's like Ringo was good for what the Beatles were. Now,
no argument with that.
Right.
Can't argue with that.
Right. He didn't need to overplay. I mean, again, when you're performing with, the other guys in that band,
right,
did enough, right?
Right. I mean, you would think, like, especially playing with that caliber of the rest of the band, if he was not what they wanted, they could have found somebody else.
Oh yeah,
no problem.
Right. So, well, did you watch the documentary? They Get Back.
Embarrassingly enough, I started it, but I haven't finished it. I was just talking about that at my gig Saturday night with the big band I was playing with. It's like, yeah, I gotta make time to finish it.
Yeah,
so I know all about it.
Yeah, it's a commitment, right? It's a long, it's an lengthy,
right.
And but it was, this has probably been said before because obviously this was a documentary that was filmed many years ago, so everyone's probably heard of different references that, like John's even has said, where it's like Ringo wasn't even the best drummer in the band. I mean, he was always a dick, right? But it was like one of those like, and I get that's why there's probably some perceived, bashing about Ringo because that's how their humor was. They were so close and they rag on each other all the time. But
right,
I mean, and Paul wasn't a bad, because I think Paul's last album that he recorded during the pandemic was he played all his own instruments. Now, it may not have been super complicated, but
doesn't have to be.
Yeah,
and it's Paul.
Yeah, right. Yeah, anything he does is
Well, actually, I mean, really, there's a lot of guys that do their own stuff. Lenny Kravitz,
Prince, right?
Trent Reznor, Prince, right? Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
So God bless all those guys. Absolutely.
All right. So in 4 beats or less, question number 2. This might be tough for you. If the first one wasn't right. Hand drums or kit?
Oh, that's really tough. I honestly, I love them both.
Do I need to get the metronome out?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. People do ask me all the time. I failed. I miss the 4-beats. I don't know. I love them both for different reasons. I mean, I guess I'm primarily a kit player, but I gig as much Latin hand drums. So I guess maybe kit because that's where my roots are.
Hey, whichever one pays you the best, right? There you go. Yeah.
There you go. Yep. Exactly.
All right.
That's a good.
Yeah. All right. So, and 4 beats or less, question number 3. Favorite venue to play at?
Oh my gosh, somebody just asked me that the other night. Oh my gosh.
Maybe I should have somebody write these questions for me, and since you got to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, seriously. Gosh. I don't know. I played so many different venues.
Well, one of the venues I saw that you played in Madison Square Garden, right? So talk
well,
about
yeah.
that. Yeah.
I'm thinking of looking. That was definitely awesome. So yeah, I have done a few. I've definitely done a few arena shows. I played at the to me it's still the National Car Rental Center now. It's the FLA Arena. So yeah, doing arena shows are definitely phenomenal. So yeah, I honestly, I was just thinking of like little local venues. But yeah, Madison Square Garden was amazing. I've marched in Giant Stadium. I played in I was a snare drummer at University of Miami Drumline, so I marched at Giant Stadium. I played. Stadiums are definitely, nothing tops the stadium. So yeah, Madison Square Garden was awesome.
All right. Okay. So, in 4 beats or less, question number 4. This is one of those. The worst experience you had with either busting a drumstick or a head at a gig.
Oh, does slicing your finger while hitting a cymbal count?
I would think so. Right. That's very Spinal Tap-ish.
Yeah. So that was this. Speaking of my death metal band, I had this big, huge china like right up there, and just the angle that I had it where I went to hit it, it didn't need stitches or anything, but it was enough that there was just blood flying everywhere. I guess it was apropos.
That's
so very metal.
That's so metal. Yeah, that's so metal.
Yep. Actually, and I think I've had that same china actually fall off a stage before because the stage was so small and the kit was so big. Same band.
I think there's something there.
Definitely.
So did you slice your finger from the cymbal, or when you went to grab it and hit, or?
Oh no, from the angle of hitting, of going to hit the. I guess the way I came down on the. I don't even know how the heck I did it. I guess the motion, I just kind of hit the edge of the cymbal with my finger. To this day, I'm not even sure how I did it, but I'll never forget it. It was a long time ago, but it's one of those things like, how the heck did I do that? And I tried to make sure I never did anything that stupid again.
Oh man, that definitely got a good story. So, all right. Well, you made it through there. So, congrats again. Thanks for playing along there. So, Evan, as part of now you've gone through the pain there. You've now made it through you're now an alum of the Drums and Rums podcast here. So there you go. So it's where the backbeat spirits. There you go. So we'll catch up. Whether if I try to catch up at a gig or mail it to you or whatever. I mean, it's not like
awesome.
It's not like we live that far away from each other here, right?
Exactly. We need to get together and imbibe in some of these rums.
Yeah, you got it there. So yeah, definitely, I'll have to keep track of. You have a gig schedule. Well, I guess maybe we'll just blend right into our shameless plugs here, right? So yeah, do you have any upcoming gigs here, or do you have a calendar or something that you post out all your stuff, or?
Typically when I know I have gigs that are public, I'll try to post them on my Instagram, on my story, or whatever. A lot of gigs are private. Sometimes a gig will come up the day of or the day before, and people ask me, how does that happen? How do you not know? And it's like, it's the music industry. Things change all the time. Things change. Something happens for somebody else that was booked, or somebody decides they want to do this instead of that. So then they'll need this, or they won't want that now. And it's like, so I just roll. So I don't really have one particular place that I do have a bunch of stuff coming up. A lot of it's private. But I will definitely, I try to post all my public gigs on my Instagram, on my story, and my page and my Facebook as well.
Okay.
So So I'll try to keep you posted that way
Yeah.
for sure.
All right. So excellent. So no, that's great. And anything else to promote or get out there?
I would just say to all the listeners, just everybody, just go out and support. If you're not playing, go out and support live musicians, and practice, play your drums, play your guitar, whatever it is that you play it, practice it, and just have fun, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't. Just do it.
Excellent.
Make it happen.
Just do it. Yeah. No, that's great. So, all right, Evan. So I'd like to thank you for coming on the podcast today. So everyone, so please check out the Drums and Rums podcast. Give it a like, follow, subscribe, rate, and give us a rating. Again, see the shirt here. Subscribe, rate, review. Well, again, if you're listening, you can't see the shirt, but that's what it says. And so that it helps us, because that's obviously how the Apple gods, I guess, algorithms and whatnots, actually put, let people know that there's a podcast to check out. So definitely, give it a like, follow, rate, ratings, and actually review the podcast as well. Follow us all on social media there, Instagram, Facebook, etc., and the website to drumsandrums.com. So thank you, Evan, for coming on the podcast. So this is Paul.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you got it. So this is where the backbeats meet spirits. All right, thanks, Evan, for coming on, man.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. It was an honor.